Hi, I'm Angela Clayton. I am a PhD student. I am a gifted evaluator for Walton County. Been in education 15 plus years. It's actually my second career. My husband and I we've been married. Wait, what year is this? We've been married. It'll be 23 years this year. We have three children, a 20-year-old, he's almost 21. He's a junior at Georgia. We have a 17-year-old who's a junior in high school and a 13-year-old daughter who is an eighth grader. A little bit about me. I am originally from Kansas City, Missouri. I've been in Georgia since I was 10. My husband likes to say that I'm officially a Georgia peach, and I tell him, no, I'm a Kansas City girl through and through. Born in the late 70s. I identify as Black. Um, Things regarding race. It's always been a part of my life. And then once I get into my family tree, it would make sense why it's something that we are very comfortable discussing race in my family. I don't know anything different. Uh, so I guess if you gave me a scale of 0 to 10, I'm at a 10. I think it's important. I think it's really healthy and good to embrace and really appreciate what makes each of us unique in our various experiences and cultures that we bring with us. Um, my parents, James and Michelle Nelson, have been married almost 50 years, both born in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm going to start with my mom and then kind of go off into her branches, and then I'll come down to my dad. So my mom, Michelle, is a registered nurse. She'll be retiring in April, May, June. She's told me. I didn't retain it. I'm sorry. She has a double master's, one in nursing and then another one in organizational leadership. Um, my mother her IQ has to be off the charts. So we always joke that she's got a lot of brains, got a lot of book smarts. But common sense is sometimes a flower that doesn't grow in everyone's garden. But she jokes about that too. She identifies as Black. She was raised by her mom, who was Black. She did an ancestry, and she wasn't shocked. She's could be categorized as being biracial, or mixed, multiracial. Her um her mom, my grandmother, had four children. My mom is the youngest. The other three children have the same father. They were married. My grandparents. Well, he's the only grandfather I know, even though biologically he was not my grandfather. He never treated us differently. My grandparents were married for a really long time, divorced. My grandmother had my mom sometime after that, and then they reconciled and then divorced again. So, um, but my mom looks very different from her siblings. She and I are probably about the same complexion. Where all three of her siblings are brown skin or darker. And so she just kind of grew up being different. She's also significantly younger than them. My mom is 60. Oh gosh. I think she's 64. Her oldest sister is 82. Her other sister's in her mid 70s, and then her brother who passed, I believe he was in between those two. So my mom is truly the baby. Her dad, my grandfather, biological grandfather, died before my mother was born. The story is regarding his family is that his mom was not Black. The assumption was she was Native American, but based on ancestry.com, that's not true. Uh, so we don't know really what exactly her racial, I guess, boxes are. But she was married to a Black man, and they had children, but she had an affair with a Jewish banker, which is how my grandfather and another sibling came to be. And they looked very different from their siblings. And my mom actually has a picture of it's a painting picture of her dad, and she looks exactly like him. Face structure, coloring, everything. So, but because he was raised in the home with his mom and her husband, he was raised as a Black man. even though he actually wasn't black. Um, so my mom only knows to identify as a black woman, but she does understand that she has more of a mixed ancestry. My grandmother, Frances Roberson, um, was court stenographer. She's my sugar dear. That's what we called her, sugar dear, because when her first grandchild, my oldest cousin, was born, um, my mom was being born too. They're a couple of months apart. So she didn't want to be she didn't want to be called grandmother while carrying a newborn. So she went by Sugar Dear. She's the oldest of her set of siblings from her mom. And she's actually from Mississippi. It's where that side of my family originates from. Um, she was born in the early 20s. Her parents are Mildred Williams and Darnell Williams. And my great grandfather, Darnell, had two families at the same time. And so I knew two of those children. I just learned today that they were actually his another family. I didn't know. Now I do. So my grandmother, Frances Roberson, her mom is black. And she was a darker skinned black lady. And her dad, though, Darnell, was mixed, black and French. And so he was lighter skinned. And so my grandmother was a lighter brown skin and had, I don't want to call it straight hair, but maybe hair that was texture-wise a little different than what many could, I guess, look for with a black woman. So when my great grandparents lived in Mississippi together, there was something that occurred that they kind of had to move. Like it wasn't a like, oh, let's go to Kansas City. It was, we got to get out of here type situation. So my great grandfather moved both of his families to Kansas City. I guess he was generous like that. So the story that my aunt told me today was that when they were boarding the train to move to Kansas City, my great grandmother had my grandmother. She was a little girl, and they were getting on the train, and she was questioned as to whose child that was, if she was the nanny, because they didn't match. And so that's just an example of colorism and how it's something that is really carried. It's black people carry that every day along with so many other things. So that's my mom's side of the family. My dad is James Nelson. He is a truck driver. He's about to retire as well. I don't know what my parents are going to do with all this time on their hands. He is the middle of many children. His story is interesting as well. He is for sure biracial. His mom's white, his dad's black. He identifies as a black man. I mean, he's a man these are mixed kids who were born in the 50s. You didn't have biracial. That wasn't a category. You were identified as black. And that's something all of my aunts and uncles are very adamant about. It's something that's said frequently. We check one box. And that's because of their experiences. And we've talked about that. But my grandma Ruby, who's is from Washington, the state of Washington, Tacoma, Washington. She dropped out of school. I don't know how far she made it. I don't know that she made it past 5th grade. Her family, they were farmers. So that was just kind of something that was done then. She got married very young to a white man, and they had 5 children together. They moved to Kansas City. They divorced. She maintained custody of the 5 children. She met my grandfather and started having children. They never married and started having children, where her ex-husband was able to use Jim Crow laws that were still on the books to come and get sole custody of those first 5 children. And he took them from her. And he went to Texas. She never saw them again. And what's really interesting is my dad and a couple of his siblings have done the Ancestry.com. And there have been a couple of people that have picked up in Texas, and they're assuming those are 2 of their siblings. But that's not something they're really wanting to approach. There's just a lot with my dad and aunts and uncles that they've experienced. The majority of them have the same father, so they're black and white. But then my youngest 2 uncles, one has an Italian father and the other one has a Mexican father. So we are very unique tree. So I don't have any information on my grandmother's parents because they disowned her once she started having my dad's siblings. And his dad, David Richard Kelly Nelson Sr., um, they didn't have a really good relationship, he and my grandmother. My dad remembers him being very physical and violent with her. And he died, I believe, when my dad was around 12 or 13. My dad did know his grandmother, Genevieve, didn't really know his grandfather. I think he may have died before my dad could meet him. I actually met my great grandmother Genevieve when I was 19 or 20 at my grandma Ruby's funeral. So, which was it as funerals go. It's one of those experiences I will never forget because my grandmother knew everybody. They lived on the west side of Kansas City, which is a true melting pot, Mexican, black, white, lots of different people, and that's who came to her funeral. It was everybody. She didn't have one type of friend. She befriended everyone she encountered. That's just who she was. And so that's me. It's my family tree. So if you got questions, I guess ask. I probably don't have any answers because there are a lot of empty branches there. Thanks.